Change it to Logitech. Change out.
But who changed it?
No, it automatically connects to the other one.
Okay. Hi, Tracy, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
See, I can't hear them still.
Tracy,
Change, get the speaker down there too.
Audio.
What you got?
And I put it up to 70. That's the Wi-Fi.
Up to the sound.
Right there. And see, I tested it in here
Change that.
from,
The light, the light is not on.
I'm on.
Everybody making it. You can recognize, listen.
I don't know. It's almost,
Yeah, but she can see it.
yeah, they can hear us and they can see. Got it?
I'm gonna lock this open now. That's it. Too much freedom. Who put this up all of it? I'll put it up there. I'll go. It's okay.
You want me to test?
You can't take it. It's okay. I just probably.
I would
I didn't come here. You're not, no. And you know what, I can do? Once we get this back online,
Mm-hmm.
we will not allow anybody else to come in here and do something.
Yeah.
Right.
But Sheriff, you've been saying that, nobody told you this one.
Right.
Lock it, cause we don't have no key. I don't like it.
So Frank, you can, if you want to, we do have a quorum, but it's up to you whether you want to get started or not, or just maybe reading the information for the public, whatever.
Okay.
How you handle this.
Okay, we can do that. I'm Frank Mullis, and I'm the board chair for the Sex Offender Risk Review Board, and I call the meeting for November 14th, 2024 to order. It's available to the public on YouTube, and I do want to welcome our guest, public guest, to our meeting. Again, we need a roll call. Tracy, if I could get a roll call, please.
Yes. So Mindy Eckerman,
Present.
Elizabeth Bigham,
Present.
Jerry Bruce,
Present.
James Chapin,
Present.
Robbie Frederick,
Present.
Katie Gropper, Jim Morton,
Present.
Frank Mullis,
Present.
Bert Reeves, Lori Rozier,
Here.
Megan Thurman,
Here.
and Sheriff Brown is on, but they're working with his computer, the video and audio.
Okay, I will read our mission statement here at SORB. Our purpose and mission is protecting Georgia's children and communities at large by identifying convicted sexual offenders that present the greatest risk of sexually reoffending. It is the board's responsibility to determine the likelihood that a sexual offender will engage in another crime against a victim who is a minor or a dangerous sexual offense. Assessments will be used by SORB to determine the risk level of the offenders. Offenders will be classified as level 1, level 2, or a sexually dangerous predator. We'll move on now to our minutes. Have all members had an opportunity to review the meetings from our previous meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any questions, comments, or concerns about the minutes? Do I hear a motion that we accept the minutes?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Who was the second?
Can you
Lori.
hear me?
Lori was the second. Okay. All in favor of accepting the minutes as approved?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. There are no, I believe, reports from offices or standing committees. Is that correct, Tracy?
Yes, but just one second. Sheriff Braun, are you on the phone?
I'm on the phone. Can you hear me?
I can, although you are echoing. I'm gonna mute where your video is so that you don't mute on your phone. So that I got you all set. I can hear you on your phone. So we got you on your phone. Okay, so I just want to make sure that, Frank, I think that we got everybody that, and also whenever there's a first or a second, when you do your first, you say your name and your second so that we have it on recording. So when Kaylin does the minutes, it's easier for her to do that because sometimes it's hard to differentiate who's doing that. So yes, we have no committees at this time.
Okay, and now we'll look at the unfinished business, which I believe is our favorite time of year, the retreat.
So just to let you know, Richard's been putting together some comparisons for the first 3 options, but then I had received the email from George Sarton regarding the state properties. And so he is away until tomorrow and he's going to send me that information, and then Richard will put all that together for all of them. So we'll send that out, and then for the next board meeting, y'all can vote on location based on your review of that information.
All right. Is there any other unfinished business?
I'm on mute on my phone.
Just ask if she can hear you.
Hey,
Is there-
Bert. So we also have Bert has joined the meeting. So to add him on there. We're good. Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead, Frank.
Was there any other unfinished business from the board?
No.
All right. Any new business?
Yeah.
I do want to, do we want to do something for Christmas is one of the questions that we generally have our Christmas party, but we don't have an office this year. Is that still something we would like to do?
Frank, you know, you and I tied as costume winners last year, so I'll refer to the group. It does make it harder without an office.
Tracy, Tracy.
We're having some internet issues, or I was having internet issues. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We have a few people frozen, so I'm not. We might want to do a roll call again.
Okay.
Only I need to make sure everybody's online, and I don't know if it was me or I think it went down completely for a minute. So let me make sure too that we're live streaming. Okay, let me do a quick roll call, make sure everybody can hear me. And is on Mindy Ackerman.
Here.
Elizabeth Bigham.
Here.
Sheriff Brown.
Here.
Okay. Jerry Bruce.
Here.
James Chapin.
Here.
Robbie Frederick.
Here.
Jim Morton.
Here.
Frank Mullis.
Here.
Reeves.
Here.
Lori Rozier.
Here.
Megan Thurman.
Here.
Tracy, are you still there?
Hey, I'm here. Can you hear me? I'm going to change my connection to a different internet connection if I can find it. Here we go. Okay. Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you. You're just lagging a little bit, I think.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I think that's better.
Okay, great. Sorry, it's storming, so that might be what's going on here.
Bert is back.
So Bert must have lost connection too.
Recording in progress.
We lost Bert.
I should be back now. Can you hear me?
Here. I think we're set. I see everybody moving, so nobody's frozen. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Frank, go ahead and move on.
Okay. All right. I just got a message from Mr. Bruce. He said that if we decide to do a Christmas party, he said we could use his conference room at his office. Is that correct, Mr. Bruce?
All right, ask her now, sure.
Now ask.
Tracy, can you hear me now, Tracy?
Yep, I can hear you, Sheriff. Can you hear me?
So, yes.
Yeah, I don't think the sheriff's hear me, so.
I'm gonna cut it.
Okay. So
I would also let people, if you wanted to have the Christmas party here in Peachtree City, here at the school, we should not have anything going on at that time.
well, that sounds great. We have a couple options. So does everybody want to get together for a Christmas gathering?
I enjoyed it. I enjoy seeing everybody. So I mean, I think it's a good for us to meet and bond together. Whichever Robbie or Jerry want to do is totally up to you guys. If we want to meet there and just pick the date, can we do the meeting from there?
So let me think. So Kaylin, is there anything, I think we just have to have our computers. Kaylin, is there anything special we need to do to be able to stream to YouTube other than just being on the way that we're on now?
No, we would be able to stream to YouTube, just the same normal way that we are now. It's just that it wouldn't be, yeah, I guess we would just do it the same way that we're doing it now. Everybody would just have their own computer, which would be weird, I guess, if we're all in the same room, but because normally when we're in the boardroom, it's like the camera would have everybody, you know what I mean? But this would be everybody, I guess, would be individually on computers or.
Well, what I'm thinking, it probably would be where we have one computer set up.
Okay, yeah. And then I could always like set my computer up a little separately, and then that way I could stream everything.
Somebody just said they had a camera. I didn't see where that was.
Yeah, that was me.
Jerry.
I've got an owl, which can sit in the middle. We could put it in the middle of the room, and it zooms in on whomever is speaking, and it shows a 360-degree view of everybody sitting around a table. And we've got large screens that we can use to project the YouTube or whatever up there, and full connectivity. So that's not a problem. If we do it at OPB, we could, we can have all that stuff set up there and have a meeting at the same time.
And I do believe, Tracy, we're going to have to move that meeting date as well. I believe you said you had court, and then Mindy is out that day as well.
No, I'm the one who has court, Frank. So don't move.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought it was Tracy in the text.
No, no, I have court on the 12th, which I can't move my court date, but don't move it for me if that works for everybody else. Only if you guys were looking for a better date, for everyone to attend the party.
Okay.
But yeah, if it's just me, no.
I actually have a training that I talked to Tracy about already on that day, so I won't be there, but my staff will let you in and set everything up and have everything running for you.
Well, what do y'all think about the 19th? Move the board meeting to the 19th.
The 19th.
Calendar, hang on.
That works for me.
The 19th.
I think I can do the 19th.
Right now it's clear.
Yeah, I think I can do the 19th. Where are you located, Jerry?
Right next to the Capitol, 2 Capitol
Okay.
Square.
Okay.
So it's on the opposite side of the Capitol from where the old SORB office was.
Okay. So is everybody good with moving the meeting to the 19th
Yep.
and have our annual Christmas party?
Would we still do 10 a.m.?
I would prefer I have something later in the day.
Yeah, so usually what we do is we still do the board meeting as scheduled at 10, and then the gathering for the holiday stuff begins following that meeting, if that's good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Do I hear a motion that we move the board meeting for December to December the 19th and followed by our holiday Christmas gathering right after that? Do I hear a motion?
This is James, and I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
Lori, second.
All right. And so we will, in all agreement, to move it to Mr. Bruce's office there at the Capitol for our meeting on the 19th at 10 a.m. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Great, thank you for
Okay.
offering that up, Jerry.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. Any other new business? Tracy, I believe we're ready for our executive director's report.
Okay, so on December 16th, there is going to be a judicial review on a case. They are Zooming it. So it'll be on YouTube. If anybody has interest in seeing that, I'll be emailing you because I'll let you know who the judge is, because that's kind of how you search YouTube to find that hearing. Now, we have had situations in the past that was not streamed to YouTube, but if it is, it gives you the opportunity to kind of see testimony. I believe Amanda is on this case and will be testifying. She does a great job. So it kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like for us to have a judicial review and what's involved in that. So this time it is on the 16th. And then the meeting at the Capitol and the new staff kind of go hand in hand. So now that we have a bigger budget, actually met at the Capitol. So I'm really excited about that and all our involvement at this point. And I'm very happy to say, and they're very happy to hear, that we will be fully staffed as of November 18th. And what that includes is we had some promotions, which included research and legislative analyst with Marcus. Marcus has been training people like crazy since July 1st. So it has been nonstop, and I know we'll be happy to get to phase 2 where we're not dealing with all this training, which has been somewhat complicated, although again, an appreciation to Cobb County for giving us a location to do the trainings. Marcus has also been using in the towers there on the balcony, has been training there because of course the office in Cobb County closes at a certain date. So we're trying to work with the people that we're training. So sometimes we have to do it on the balcony, and Marcus reports that's been working out okay, that there's not a whole lot of people up there. So you realize that when you don't have an office, how much you really need an office. So we're looking forward to February, March to come around to us actually having space, because it's been a little complicated. So, but we're working through it, and Marcus is doing a great job with his training as usual. I'm hoping that come January, because before this all happened, you guys had wanted Marcus to do some brief talks like at the end of each meeting. And so hopefully come January, if everything is done with his training, which it should be, I believe, or at least close to it, he'll be able to start doing that again. If that isn't going to happen, I'll let y'all know when that should start back up again. So you start getting more information and he's able to give you more of that information. We also have the deputy directors, with Richard, and he's settling into his position. We've been working on the CJCC grant and then working on kind of coming up with some of our goals for the year. And we've started talking to GTA regarding our website and making our website better and making it more user friendly for the public and what we can add to it for our stakeholders and the public. So we just started doing that. So that's been really good. Office of Operations Manager is Kaylin. So she just came back from maternity leave and I'm grateful that she's back. And her position, we're now adding, she's going to be able to start working on some policies and procedures that we've had, but we need tweaked and updated, and then also some additional ones. So she's jumping right on that, just coming back. And so I'm looking forward to that part of it. Office of Operations Assistant is Destiny, and she actually is kind of taking over the role that Caitlin had before her promotion. We have added the administrative assistant, and so she's kind of taking over Destiny's role that she had, and she's trying to settle in. And then we have 2 administrative analysts, and what those roles do is we get numerous lists every month with new sex offenders either coming into Georgia who have been prosecuted, who have been paroled, or who are coming out of prison, and all those have to be entered into our system. We have to create the criminal history. There's a lot of process involved in that. And so finally we'll hopefully be able to get caught up on that by having 2 analysts rather than just the one, which was Valerie. So we now have 2. The second one will start on the 18th. We have the chief investigator, of course, who is Russ, and he is supervising 8 investigators. We have 1 final slot that's filled November 18th. So he's actually in full force with all his people, except for the 1 person who will start on the 18th. And then Amanda is our clinical evaluator supervisor, and she has been, awesome because we have so many. And we just hired people November 1st. I think it was 5 people, and we'll have, I believe it's 2 more people come November 18th, and that fills all the slots. So come November 18th, we'll have 10 full-time evaluators and 15 part-time evaluators. So that fills every slot that I had put together for this budget. And I went over that with Caitlin Little at the Capitol, and she seems pretty happy. And I will be on the list to be able to testify about our budget and kind of share with the Capitol when appropriations comes back up for discussion, what our progress has been with filling those roles. And as you all saw, we already have more cases coming in. So hopefully you'll start seeing more and more of that each month, which during your retreat will be one thing you'll talk about with the number of cases that may start popping up. It might become a little difficult for everybody reading through a month's time, depending on how many cases that is. So that has gone really great. It's been a lot, but we're getting there. So it's really good. And then our next board meeting is December 19th versus December 12th. And I'll make sure that we get that out on our website, and I'll send out an email as well, just a reminder. And that's all I have that I can think of.
Does anyone have any questions for Tracy?
Only question I have, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can. Good.
Good deal.
All right. It is time now to review our cases. Has everyone had an opportunity to review all of the cases for the month? Anyone who did not? All right, I'm going to ask Tracy if she will explain the leveling process for us.
So I said before that we get multiple lists as well as individual notifications of new offenders for each month, and that information goes into our database. We usually get absolutely no information with those cases. So then the investigators take those cases, they collect all the criminal documentation that is needed in assessing risk, which is not just the sex offense convictions, but any kind of charges, or arrests related to sex offenses, or any offenses that are violent in nature or potentially sexual in nature. And they collect all that information that then goes to the evaluators. They summarize that information. They also look at prison behavior. They look at community supervision behavior, and they look at treatment behavior and progress or lack of progress, and put all that information together, identify risk factors, put that in a report. They score risk assessment as part of the baseline, standardized risk assessment as part of the baseline. And then they make a recommendation of level to the board members who are reading those reports as they're completed throughout the month. And we stop uploading new cases the week before the board meeting, so the board members have enough time to read them all. And then we come to the board, to the meeting, to make a decision.
All right, thank you, Tracy. We had 15 level 1 cases. Are there any recusals on the level 1 cases this month? Okay, did we have questions, comments, and concerns? I know there were some cases. Were there any of them level 1 cases, Tracy?
There is one, and for some reason, I'm not able to open it right this second, but there was a level 1 case. I know that Elizabeth Bigham wanted to discuss.
It's case number 14028.
And what was your concern?
I just had a few concerns about it. While reading through it, my understanding is that there was obviously one confirmed child molestation, but then there were multiple allegations that he had molested other children, to include, I believe, his nieces. The fact that his victims were so young, they're clearly all prepubescent, but he tends to go, obviously be sexually attracted to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds. And what's concerning about that to me is that his victims are, while they can disclose for sure, the 3 to 5 to 6-year-olds might not have the words or the wherewithal to understand that, what's happening to them is wrong. So it might make them more difficult to disclose what's happening. It sounds like he kind of has a pattern of what his sexual interest is. Oh, sorry. Y'all still there?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm
Okay.
sharing the screen to show the report.
Oh, I see it. Sorry, the screen went black and I was like, uh-oh. Clearly he has a sexual pattern, and obviously what turns him on is, masturbating behind children. He did that to his wife or girlfriend, adult wife or girlfriend, who was able to kind of confirm that, the allegation of the child, which to me confirmed, that what she was saying was absolutely true. It just appears he started offending as a juvenile. He has clearly not stopped. He continually offended. And we don't know how he got his victims, except for obviously through some relationships. But it seems as though if he's got access to a child that piques his sexual interest, he's probably going to offend. And then the other thing that concerned me was, I believe it was November of 23. His probation officer, if I'm not mistaken, found a screenshot of what was described as a sexually explicit image, but there's really no more context about it. So is it CSAM? Is it child erotica? I don't know what it is. But that would be interesting to me. Are we actively looking at CSAM as of, literally 1 year ago? And what are some other contexts to that image that was found? Is he having chats with people? Is he on websites that are known for child pornography or anything like that? So I just had some more questions. It just, to me, it didn't seem like he's a level 1 type of dude.
Yo, this is Bert, and I agree. Some of the prior incidents, it looks like were admitted. I guess he went to trial. It appears they were the way I read it is that they were admitted as similar transactions, which is hang on, let me find the.
Were they like 404B evidence?
I guess what I'm trying to, were they admitted by a court? It's, similar transaction is a term of art. for prior acts being admitted into court, right? And so my thought is that if those acts were good enough for that, then that's absolutely something that we should be able to consider. And again, we've got 3 time frames of the early 80s, or late 70s, early 80s, the 90s, and then this. So there's really spanning 3 decades incidents that are referenced here, and that seems, I agree that a level 1 seems a little low for this pattern.
And also, just let's all recall that these are only the victims we know about from allegations and information.
Were
Yeah.
these priors detected before the investigation? It's in here, I'm sorry. I didn't see them. The similar transactions detected after the investigation.
It's not opening up in my email anymore. I can barely see.
I'm assuming when it says relationship to victim unknown, I'm assuming there is some sort of relationship. They're not strangers. But I'm assuming that there has to be some kind of, I'm assuming incest with just the length of time it took place. I don't know if it's stepfather or what it is from what I'm missing.
So in the report, the victim's mother of the case that was actually charged and which he was sentenced on alluded to that he had done this before with nieces.
Wonder if that's Denise's.
And then in the report, it says we don't actually know if the nieces are the same people that are listed below as victims in the similar transaction motion. But it's kind of inferred that that's a possibility.
So it's maybe an uncle?
Possibly. The victim's mother says that he had done that to nieces. So she tells of instances involving relatives, and that happens to just relate closely to the similar transaction motions that have 2 separate victims as well. I mean, a similar transaction motion is brought by the state after they investigate something, so it doesn't have to be from an arrest. But if you read the details of it, it's clearly something that has been detailed to what his actions were. Those seem to have a lot of similarity, but the real concerning thing to me is they occur, essentially a decade apart. And so you have a 3 to 7-year-old from the 70s and early 80s, and then you have a 7 to 17-year-old in the 90s to early 2000s. And that's before we even get to the case he's actually convicted of. So that to me was very significant. And it seems that if he'd been charged and prosecuted with that, we probably would have been viewing this very differently. But because it comes as a similar transaction motion, I don't know how that gets scored. So that's my concern.
He also has a PTSD diagnosis and with the VA, so we know that he's of his background with PTSD, and so don't know how that affects as a stressor.
I would pull it. I would make a motion if I can to pull it because I'm trying to scour this Static 99 manual. I know if priors have been detected and punished, that increases risk, and this clearly wouldn't be a level 1 in my opinion. But I don't have time to go through the Static 99 manual. I agree with Ms. Bigham's concern.
But he's got a Tracy. Tracy, you there?
Yeah.
So my question is, he's got a point for an unrelated. So we know that these are unrelated victims, or we give the point because we don't know.
So in the first one, it was determined that the child's unrelated because, he has to be living with to be considered related, they have to be living with for 2
Okay.
years consistently.
Right. Okay.
So he already does get that point for that convicted sex offense.
Okay.
So if everybody's good with it, I would like, if you are good, Jim had mentioned pulling it, I would actually like to pull it and submit it back to the supervisor to review this case again,
Okay.
and then resubmit it for next month.
Okay. Do I hear a motion that we pull this case?
So
Jane.
moved.
So moved.
Okay. I believe that was Sheriff Brown.
For
And
the
then
first.
Elizabeth, I think Sheriff Brown was first, and then Elizabeth, were you second?
Yes, that's fine.
All in favor of this case being pulled?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, were there any other questions or comments, concerns about any other of the 15 level 1 cases, Tracy? That you know of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. If not, do I hear a motion we adopt the level 1 cases that have been presented to the board?
So moved.
That was
Second.
Bert. Okay, that was Bert was first. Robbie was second, I believe. Is that correct, Robbie?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, Tracy, could I get a roll call?
Yes, Mindy,
Aye.
and of course, this is the exemption of 14028, which we are pulling. Elizabeth,
Aye.
Sheriff Brown,
Aye.
Jerry,
Sorry, aye.
that's great. James,
Aye.
Robbie,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Bert,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
and the level ones pass.
All right. We have 28 level 2 cases. I have 3 recusals, 27742, 24766, and 26088. Does anyone else have any recusals for the level 2 cases?
Yes, I do. It's 31331.
Any other recusals? Okay, do any of the members have questions, comments, or concerns about the level 2 cases? Tracy, were any of the cases you sent, were they level 2?
Yes. The 31331.
I have a possible question or comment on 26353.
Can we, let's start at, can we start 31331 or?
I didn't know if I needed to say it now, but
Oh, no, we can do it individually.
Okay, who submitted the question about 31331?
So from what I remember, Tracy, and I know I'm recused from this one, but this one was pulled, has it been a couple of months now ago?
I believe it was. Yes, it was pulled for further review.
And actually, yeah, it was Jerry.
Yes,
Frank,
it's one of
yeah,
those
go ahead.
complicated cases. It's a juvenile case. So we do not have, we cannot use a actuarial for this kind of case. And at the same time, this individual has numerous victims. So it's one of those really complicated cases. And I think that it is important for the board to be able to kind of review and discuss it, and for us to kind of talk about juvenile offenders, especially those who have a pretty serious history of victims, and what that might mean for the offender as a juvenile, and what that means into adulthood, and I do ask that Mindy be able to speak about, not this case specifically about, but about juvenile sex offenders, because she's an expert in that field. And I think that will give us a little more guidance as well, as there's any questions about this case.
Yeah, that was the question I was going to ask. Could Mindy give us insight, not about the case, but in general?
Sure.
Is everyone on the board okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so when looking at a case like this, and especially a juvenile, some of the important things to really identify is how early did they start their inappropriate, sexually harmful behavior? Are there multiple victims? As Tracy just mentioned, in this case, there appears to be several. What is the time period of their offending behavior? Is there aggression or violence and threats? If there's physical aggression, that raises the risk significantly. How sophisticated is the planning? Was it more impulsive, or can you really put together that they're really planning these offenses? And then, of course, typically, the longer that they've been offending and looking at the victims, if they're prepubescent, a lot of times siblings, there's going to be that deviant arousal. And especially if they've been offending for so long, then were incarcerated, they've never had a peer, an appropriate or healthy peer relationship. And then one thing that we often get into with juveniles, and I'll just put that out there is one residential treatment program that does do polygraphs. The others really do not, unless, especially if they're with DJJ, sometimes we will request it. But, and some of you may know that ATSA has put out that they're against that unless, the youth is at least 18. They'll give exceptions at 17 if they really think that they're high risk. So a lot of times we just don't know the extent of their victims and the extent of the risk. And a lot of times we're making decisions for them to go back home or to go back into the, into the family environment. And we don't know if the siblings are victims. So that's always been problematic in the juvenile world. So really, and again, there's some things that are very similar to adults here. You're looking at male victims. Are there any male victims in this case? The number of victims, how long they've been offending, the age that they started, because a lot of times the age they start really influences, their hypersexuality and their preoccupation with sex. Violence is a huge thing in the adolescent world. So if he used any kind of violence and the planning. So hope that helped.
If I could ask a question at this point. It said monthly progress reports indicate polygraph exams are not required.
Yeah, they're not for juveniles typically. Now, I will say, very similar to the adult offenders, completion of treatment is a risk reducing factor. So if an adolescent successfully completes treatment, that is supposed to reduce their recidivism.
But we honestly don't know because there's no polygraphs, correct?
Correct.
And I think, Mindy, you had told me at one point that juvenile sex offender treatment completion is the same risk reducing factor as adult, correct?
Correct. And of course they look at the protective factors for juveniles just as, as well. So supportive family, all of that, protective factors.
This person's supervised by DCS or by juvenile, by DD, who's supervising?
DJJ.
He'd be supervised by DCS because he's convicted as an adult. And he's now 21.
But his sentence really doesn't include polygraph, and since he's not in treatment, the PO can't force a poly to do a sexual history.
Well, technically, they probably could, if he was still in treatment, that would
But
be a requirement of adult probation, would it not? But I
well, if
don't
he's
know.
completed sex offender treatment,
Yeah.
generally, there's not going to be a recommendation from treatment.
So not even a maintenance.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, and Lori can help me with that, a probation officer, if they have just cause, can give a polygraph to anyone. Is that correct, Lori?
No, that's not correct.
Okay, so that was the question. So they, even if they have probable cause, they can't request a polygraph.
You said for anyone, it would be based on what conditions they have in their sentence. So each case
Okay.
would be specific. So no, they just can't request it for anyone.
Okay. So, but sex offender special conditions, would this person have sex offender special conditions as on probation, adult probation?
I would have to look at that sentence to speak on it in general to say,
Okay.
I wouldn't know.
Okay. Thank you. That's that helped me clarify.
So it was saying, it does say monthly progress reports indicate the polygraph exams are not required. So he probably had a different sentence, given the fact that he was a juvenile when he was convicted, he probably had different conditions.
Yeah, and I can speak on that. I mean, a lot of times, so if you have a juvenile who has superior court charges, they will be supervised and housed by DJJ initially, whether that's in a YDC or whether it's in a residential program. And they'll have a juvenile probation officer, but once the time, and oftentimes they're committed to DJJ. So once that order expires and they basically age out, they are then transferred to their DCS or their adult probation.
Okay, so any other questions or concerns about this case? Now, were we going to pull this case and try to get more information, or was this more educational?
I think did we already pull it? No, we haven't pulled it.
We pulled it the one time for it to be further reviewed.
That's right. That months ago, yeah.
Before discussion, and then I think part of the reason for bringing it back was it has been reviewed, but again, education is part of it because it's a more complicated case given the dynamics. However, also I think there might be some concerns about whether, given the significant history, if he really is higher than a level 2.
Yeah, that was my concern for raising it. I mean, I know I'm sensitive to the issues regarding the juveniles, very sensitive to them. And but this guy is a very violent offender, and we don't have the same kind of information about him that we often have for other folks. And it worried me. It seemed that the leveling was based on, the fact that we don't have a whole lot of we don't have the same level of information and insight on this person as we normally do because of the lack of polygraphs and stuff. And so I wondered if there was a disconnect between our assessors having made an assessment based on what we have, which is not, my word, was not enough to really accurately get a handle on how violent this guy has been in the past. I mean,
I do have a question about this. In the summary, it says that the offender was molested at a young age. It doesn't say who molested him. He became sexually active at the age of 8. And at the time where he started collecting his victims, he would inflict pain if they did not comply. So it does show that he can be sexually violent. So that's pretty concerning to me too.
I think too, he's almost kind of in between opportunistic and planning, because you can see based on the victim statements where he was planning because you'd get him in the basement, etc. But at the same time, it's almost like, you know, whoever's available that's with him in the home that day, you know, goes down there. So there's a planning portion of it, but also opportunity, which obviously is very concerning. He's young. I mean, I get that he's only 21 years old, but like you mentioned, Mindy, like he's likely never had a proper, appropriate relationship with a peer.
Is he currently on probation?
I think he got released. Has he been on for 2 years or so? Right? 2.5 years? Got released in May of 22.
The 4 years about. He was released in May of 22.
I think
He's been out for 2.5 years.
He's only been in his own space since October.
For a month? Yeah.
So
he had a 10-year sentence, so he should be on supervision.
Well,
do we have any current notes on him? Any progress notes?
It says he attends a sex offender treatment weekly, but he's no longer in a controlled environment.
So one thing that stood out to me is that in 2023, the reason we have a transcript is because he was moving to early terminate his probation a year ago. We don't have what the ruling was. I have an assumption about that based on what we read in the transcript. But what you also see, or not the transcript, the summary of the transcript. But what you also see when you're talking about the planning is there was a ranking system based on compliance. The higher you ranked was the more compliant you were, which means the less violence you received. So that's, I think, very sophisticated for what we're talking about here to also consider. So I share concerns with this one.
And I think Mindy talked about their support system is a factor, and clearly his parents were aware of what was going on, and it continued to happen.
Yeah, it shows that all they did was send him down to the basement.
Right, which just became his den to molest children. So I would be concerned about, you know, if his parents are his quote unquote support system when he gets out or is out, that would be very concerning.
Yeah, it says that he's out on his own. He's attending sex offender treatment weekly. He's ongoing monitoring in the community, but no longer in a controlled environment.
Yeah, I was just confused that he completed sex offender treatment and he's still in sex offender treatment. That was
yeah, I thought that was weird too.
Am I reading that wrong? I read that he continues to attend weekly individual counseling sessions.
Okay.
So, and I'll throw this in there. And I don't know if this was a DJJ recommendation or DCS. A lot of times when they are released either from a YDC or a residential facility where they were receiving treatment, they will essentially complete treatment, but it will be recommended that they continue with accountability maintenance treatment, whether that's once a month or every couple of weeks. But that's a very common recommendation in DJJ until the therapist recommends that it's no longer needed. So it kind of goes hand in hand with their juvenile supervision. And I'm trying to think of, so I don't know if this, and like Jim said, I think Jim just made the point. I don't know if this is sex offender treatment or just general individual weekly sessions. And I don't know if that recommendation is from his adult probation or DJJ.
I
So with
see.
DJJ, they also have the HITS program, which is a high intensity
That's
program.
correct.
And so it depending on if that's what they have him in, that probation officer would basically be either calling him every day, or coming to his residence every day, checking in on him, or making him call in every day. You know, it just kind of depends on what his specific requirements are.
I see it in the summary now. I was looking under sex offender treatment where it says individual counseling, likely for the adjustment disorder or whatever else is going on. But if he were to see a DCS approved therapist individually, I have individuals that I require polygraph even though they're in aftercare, and probation supports me in that. So, and I know polygraph's not the be all end all, but if he's still under supervision for another 6 years, he might be a sexually dangerous predator that might require more. You know, when we send people to prison, they do SOPP, but it doesn't count for their outpatient treatment. So I would want more information about the treatment.
So Tracy, can we just pull this off and can we get more information on some of the questions that we had?
So one of the questions, just to clarify, is about treatment. And here's the problem with SORB getting information on treatment is that there's HIPAA involved. And so when it comes to DJJ, they're not in the law. SORB has access to DCS information, treatment, and polygraphs because it's required by the state. With DJJ, totally different story. So we can't gain access to their treatment records in DJJ at this time. So we're not going to be able to get that. Now, is there another question? I know that like in DCS, the information where he's attending individuals coming from the DCS case notes. So there's a possibility of clarification by contacting the DCS officers and asking them more information about that. And what that individual counseling means exactly, and if it's really sex offender specific or if it's more related to mental health issues.
Yes, I think so, Tracy. That would be helpful, and it would also address the issue if he's in sex offender treatment, why aren't polygraphs being conducted? So I think that's the route that needs to be taken.
Okay.
Tracy, is it relevant for us to request? I don't know if this is relevant or not, but I'm very curious about what his reasons were for, if he stated specific reasons for moving to have his probation terminated early. Maybe I'm just more curious than anything. But I can't, is it possible for us to get a copy of his motion to terminate his probation that has details in it?
We should be able to get that.
From my understanding, all probationers can request after 3 years. Is that correct, Lori?
Yes, it's per state law. If they meet the guidelines, then they automatically fit that criteria. With sex offenders, it has to go before the court, and the court makes a decision on whether or not that case is terminated. But some circuits do have blanket orders where the judge says they don't want to see those cases before them. If they meet the criteria, they can come off. Or some judges may have a blanket order that says no one will come off if they're a sex offender. So it just depends on the circuit.
I just wonder, I'm curious about if he articulated his reasons why in the motion.
That's for the DA to do. We just prepare the orders if they meet the criteria, and they may give a brief overview, but usually the DA is the one that's going to present. Some judges are allowed the officer to, tell their side or to give justification. So it may or may not be in writing. It may be in the transcript.
Yeah, so it can come in the form of two different ways. One, it could come on a motion of the defendant, theoretically. Right. But the other one, which is the one that I see more, is the department, DCS actually sends me a document saying this person meets this criteria. Do you agree, or do you want it to go before the judge?
Exactly.
And so it's not from the defendant.
Okay.
It's from Department of Community. It's from DCS.
So either way, if there's a hearing, then there should be a transcript. Although whether it's been created. I don't know.
I mean, we can reach out to the DA, but to both the DCS officer and the DA in this case, because I mean, that's part of SORB's process, you know, that we can receive that information if it's available.
So we don't know from what we have if he had a lawyer move the court to do this or if it was the routine one. But I think that what I'm interested in is if he proactively moved the court to do this, what was the content in the motion, or what evidence was presented at the hearing? What kind of arguments were made?
Yeah, well, DCS will have a record of if it was from on their petition to remove them based on the criteria, and that should. So if DCS can provide that, that would explain if it was theirs. If it's because a motion was filed by the defendant, that's going to be in the court records. So I think either way, it's in the court records, but one is very clear from DCS, one will be very clearly from the defendant.
Yeah, so we can reach out and get that information.
All right, do I hear a motion that, are there any other questions or concerns? Do I hear a motion that we pull this case again and ask for further clarification on the issues regarding the early termination from probation and seeing if there's any other treatment notes that we can gain access from DCS?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so Jerry, and James, we were second. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so with this case will be pulled and we'll seek further information. All right, do we have any other cases, any questions, concerns, or comments about the 28 level 2, actually 27 level 2 cases now?
I have one. And I apologize for just catching it. It's 26353.
So the difficulty when we don't have notification of a case is being able to really discuss it effectively. Should we just pull it, Jim, do you think?
That's fine, or I'll just vote against it.
We can pull, I mean, because we can pull it so then we can bring it up for the next.
Yeah, I make a motion to pull it.
Okay, do I hear a second? We pull that case?
I'm sorry, what's
Okay,
the
Robbie,
number?
second.
I'm sorry, hold on. What's the number?
26353.
Okay.
And I apologize again for not catching that earlier.
This will be similar to the juvenile case we just talked about. It was pulled before there was any discussion about the case. And so the next meeting, if y'all agree to pull this case, is to really process it for the conversation.
Okay.
So I know we have
Right.
a second.
Okay, all in favor of pulling that case?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, that case has been pulled. So that leaves us with 26 level 2 cases now, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, comments, or concerns before we vote to adopt the cases? All right, do I hear a motion to adopt the level 2 cases as presented to the board? And that's 26 now.
So moved. Second.
All
Who's
right,
first?
Bert. Who was the first there?
Robbie.
Robbie was first and Jim was second. All right, can I get a roll call, please, Casey?
Not second, but I can be.
Is everybody ready?
Who was the second? It wasn't me.
Oh, I thought it was you. I'm
I
sorry.
think it was me.
All right, it was Bert. Bert.
Thanks for letting us know that, Jim. Okay. Okay. Ready for roll call?
Yes.
Okay, Mindy, with these,
Aye.
just to make it up front, we will not be voting on 26353 or 31331. So aside for those two cases, Mindy,
Aye.
Elizabeth,
Aye.
Sheriff Brown,
Aye.
Jerry,
Aye.
James,
Aye.
Robbie,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Bert,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
and those pass in addition to the recusals from Frank on those cases.
Okay, we have 19 sexually dangerous predator cases. I am recused from 14313, 32019. Any other recusals from the predator cases? All right. Any questions, comments, concerns? And I had a case pulled. I later looked at it, but it did bring up the question, and I wanted Tracy to talk about cases that we leveled that are now the person has moved out of state.
Okay, so there was a question of why are we leveling someone who's no longer living in Georgia? And so we have two processes. One is if somebody's convicted in Georgia, we're required to level them even if they no longer live in Georgia because they are a Georgia sex offender. If they live in another state, however, or I'm sorry, was convicted in another state, and come to Georgia and then leave Georgia and we haven't leveled them yet, then we won't level that person. So again, if it's a Georgia convicted sex offender, even if he has out of state sex offenses as well, but if he has any Georgia sex offense that he's been convicted of that is registrable and he moves out of state, we still level that person. And that's by law.
I know
and they often come back, honestly. I mean, we see a lot of returns to Georgia. It's similar to individuals that are in Georgia, who are convicted in Georgia and are deported. They often come back. And so regardless of deportation, we will level those individuals as well.
I've noticed that especially with Texas, people who move to Texas, they don't seem to stay in Texas very long.
Too hot.
The question I did have, I noticed on that case is that I believe it was a one offense case and it was incest, if I remember correctly, but I missed the domestic violence angle to start with. But there wasn't a lot of information on the guy. And so I'm assuming if we make him a predator, that information, he may send in that information to us to give us a better understanding. And so from my understanding, he has he's a one case and it's incest, and those generally tend to be lower risk offenders. But I had missed the domestic with it earlier. So the domestic would have been a violent, which would have been a risk increasing factor, obviously. Can you scroll down to his static? And then his static is low as well. And so, but we didn't have any other information on him. So that was my original curiosity of why he was, as far as the summary there. Is that he's seemingly a low risk offender with a one case, and he's being deemed a predator was my original question.
He has multiple victims, prepubescent victims. Does that?
But Tracy, is that part of a risk increasing factor?
So it is, because when we look at an individual, he has.
I know male victims would be a risk.
Yeah, but he also, and even though he was considered related, he was their stepfather with two of the cases. In all three cases, they were prepubescent males. So that certainly, and it was over a 10-year period. So it's certainly factors I know the evaluator took into consideration. Male victims, 3 male victims, all prepubescent victims, marrying someone with children that he later offended against. And there's been additional allegations as well, apparently.
Right.
Treatment failure, you may mention that, or lack of treatment completion. would be a risk increasing factor.
So that's a more difficult one, and why they didn't consider that in as a risk increasing factor, because we don't know in Texas, he may be attending. Treatment failure would mean that he either chose not to attend when he was required to attend or got kicked out. And we don't have that information. So now if he completed treatment while he was in Texas and he provides us that information, that would certainly at least be considered.
But mainly after I looked at that, that was just my question. You know, I know we had questions on Texas and that. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just kind of have an administrative question, but it's come up a couple of times now when I was reading, and this maybe I'm new and y'all know this and I don't because I'm new. But why do we have such a difficult time, or it seems like we can't get out of state records many times is that normal, I guess?
So yeah, we don't have the information regarding all these different states and their access to their, like, so for Georgia, we have direct access. So we don't have to determine who's a probation officer, what county they're living in, how to get into contact. And we've gotten legal rights to the information in Georgia. We don't have that in other states.
Okay.
And also treatment, again, through Georgia, there's law, but otherwise HIPAA plays a role in other states. So we wouldn't be able to.
Got it. Okay.
And this is why we hate doing out-of-state cases when we're dealing with.
Well, I guess my thought is it something where we can call out there? Like if he's on probation out there, call out there and be like, hey, we're trying to level him. Can y'all provide us any information on it? Or is it where we're not even allowed to call and ask?
So we could call. We usually try to go through interstate compact and identify any kind of issues because there's supposed to be any report of violations through interstate compact.
Okay.
It's not always a successful route to go, but we could hunt that down and see and get more information about that if you want to look at potentially reducing him. Otherwise, the other thing is that he has the ability to provide us with any information for the reevaluation process. So
Okay.
he has 4 months to do that. And so if he has completed treatment or has additional information, given the fact that he's already rated high risk, then it could be on him to provide us with that information by living out. Right.
All right. Any other questions or concerns about this case or any of our other sexually dangerous predator cases? All right. Do I hear a motion to adopt the sexually dangerous predator cases? There are 19 of them.
Also move.
Second.
Okay. I believe it was Mr. Bruce and Bert was second. Is that correct?
I thought
Wasn't me.
James was first.
James.
And who was the second?
I believe it was Bert.
There's a bunch of us, but
All right, Bert, I'm selecting you. Second that. Okay. Okay, so we are moving forward then, I am presuming, with the case in question that y'all were just discussing.
Yes.
Okay. And just to point out, let me look, that was case 23375. So we're moving forward with that as being voted on as a sexually dangerous predator. So with that in mind, and also Frank, you have 2 recusals, but the vote does not impact that to be able for us to process the cases. So Mindy, any questions or concerns about any of the sexually dangerous predators?
No questions or concerns. My vote is aye.
Elizabeth, any questions or concerns about any of the sexually dangerous predator cases?
No, my vote is aye.
Sheriff Brown, any questions or concerns about any of the sexually dangerous predator cases?
No, my vote is aye.
Jerry, any questions or concerns about any of the sexually dangerous predator cases?
No, and my vote is aye.
James, any questions or concerns about any of the sexually dangerous predator cases?
No, my vote is aye.
Robbie, any questions or concerns about any of the sexually dangerous predator cases?
No questions or concerns. My vote is aye.
Jim, any questions or concerns about any of the sexually dangerous predator cases?
No, and my vote is aye.
Frank, any questions or concerns about any of the sexually dangerous predator cases?
No, and my vote is aye.
Burr, any questions or concerns about any of the sexually dangerous predator cases?
No and aye.
Lori, any questions or concerns about any of the sexually dangerous predator cases?
No, my vote is aye.
And Megan, any questions or concerns about any of the sexually dangerous predator cases?
No, and my vote is aye.
They pass.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to our 6 reeval cases, I believe, and I didn't have any recusals. Are there any recusals? Any questions, comments, or concerns about the reeval cases? All right, do I hear a motion that we adopt the reeval cases as presented to the board?
So moved.
Derek Brown was first.
Lori
Second.
second.
Thank you.
All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Yes. Mindy, any questions or concerns about any of the reeval cases?
No, my vote is aye.
Elizabeth, any questions or concerns about any of the reeval cases?
No, my vote is aye.
Sheriff Brown, any questions or concerns about any of the reeval cases?
No, my vote is aye.
Jerry, any questions or concerns about any of the reeval cases?
No, and my vote is aye.
James, any questions or concerns about any of the reeval cases?
No, my vote is aye.
Robbie, any questions or concerns about any of the reeval cases?
No questions. Aye.
Jim, any questions or concerns about any of the reeval cases?
No, and my vote is aye.
Frank, any questions or concerns about any of the reeval cases?
No, and my vote is aye.
Burr, any questions or concerns about any of the reeval cases?
No and aye.
Lori, any questions or concerns about any of the reeval cases?
No, my vote is aye.
And Megan, any questions or concerns about any of the reeval cases?
No, my vote is aye.
And they pass.
All right, thank you, everyone. A lot of cases, I believe it's 60 plus cases this month, and I want to thank the evaluators and the investigators and obviously the staff for all your hard work again this month and all the other months as well. Thank you, board, for reviewing these cases. Okay, go ahead.
I want to thank, because I want to mention that Mandy Ballinger, she has been a board member for 8 years, and she was not able to make a lot of our meetings because she is not actually on a lot of boards, and Mandy does a lot of things. She has rolled off the board, but I wanted to acknowledge the things, so many things that she's done for the agency. She was key to us getting a grant that actually carried us for the last 7 years. It has been phenomenal, and we would not have been able to do that without her and her assistance with that. She also has assisted in a lot of legislation as well as appropriations. So she has been such a huge incremental piece to SORB, and she will continue, I believe, to support us and help us. But I wanted to acknowledge Mandy and how much she's really contributed to SORB.
Yes, thank you.
And that is all I have.
Anything else? All right, I believe it is the 19th of December. And Jerry, will you send out the address to where everybody goes on the 19th?
Yeah, I'll send it to Tracy. Thanks.
All right. All right. Do I hear a motion? We adjourn.
So moved.
Second, third, fourth.
Okay, wait, who was first? Sheriff Brown was first, I think, and then Burr was second.
Yeah. All right. And we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.